Caseus, Jedi Master. The following is a fan-written story set 9 years before the events of Star Wars: A New Hope. The following story is non-canon to any and all events in the Star Wars universe. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, hope is rekindled. During his exile on the planet Dantooine, Cassius Urshan has resolved to once again take up his role as a Jedi Knight. After defeating the devious Shara and putting a stop to the Empire's threat to Dantooine, Cassius has fled the system with an unlikely companion. Though young, the child Liara has shown great potential in the Force, and with her mother's blessing, Cassius has taken it upon himself to teach her the ways of the Jedi, so as to keep the light of the Jedi Order from being extinguished. With his experience and knowledge, and Liara's willingness to learn, Cassius embarks on a new journey to find peace within himself and honor the legacy left behind by the Jedi who came before. Chapter 1. The sun shone through the windows of the Jedi Temple as Cassius sat in his bed, completely distraught. He had just returned from the apprentice tournament in the temple training grounds, and sadly, had found himself eliminated early on. It was hopeless. He'd trained so hard to impress the masters, and he barely made an impression with his performance. Corbin had already been selected by a master, as had nearly every other youngling who had taken part in the tournament. Yet he was here, alone in his bed, tired and ashamed at himself. There came a knock at the door as he sat up straight and wiped his eyes, as Master Jocasta Nu entered the room.
Cassius, there is someone here who would like to speak with you. Okay.
The Jedi librarian stepped aside as a tall, slender woman entered. She had tan skin and silvery white hair tied back in a ponytail.
Hello, Cassius. I am Master Takai.
She bowed politely as Cassius stood and returned the gesture.
I saw your performance in the training grounds. Am I in trouble? I promise, I trained hard. No, you're not in trouble. Quite the opposite. I was quite impressed.
Cassius' eyes shot open. He'd actually managed to impress someone.
Really? Tell me, Cassius. When you were out there, what was going through your mind? I wanted to win, so I could train as a Jedi. I see. It seems like you were upset when you were eliminated.
Cassius looked down at his feet and nodded.
It wasn't fair. I trained so hard, but I lost. You won't win all the time, young one. There will be days when you are met with defeat. But defeat is rarely without silver lining. Every defeat is just another lesson learned, and you will become all the stronger for it. I see a lot of potential in you, Cassius. As such, I have spoken to the Council and selected you as my Padawan.
Cassius looked up at the kind face of Master Takai.
Really? Yes. But I want you to know, the path to becoming a Jedi is not easy. I will train you and teach you everything I know. But from you, I require patience, determination, and a willing spirit. If you promise me that you will give it your all, I will train you to become a true Jedi.
Cassius smiled and stood before her.
I will, Master. I promise. I won't let you down.
Master Takai smiled and held out her hand, getting down on one knee to face him.
Then I welcome you as my student, Cassius. Come with me. Mr. Cassius?
Cassius snapped out of his daydream and looked at Liara, who was sitting in the seat beside him.
Are we almost there?
Be patient, Liara. The most important virtue any Jedi must have is patience. We'll be arriving soon. When we get there, stick close to me. I haven't been back here in a while, so It may not be entirely safe.
Okay. When do I get to use the lightsaber?
Liara, what did we just talk about?
Right. Patience. You sound like Mom.
Well, your mother is a very wise woman. Liara rolled her eyes as their ship flew through hyperspace. They'd been flying for a day and a half. Liara was getting irritable, and Caseus was already questioning if he was like this at her age. Within an hour, they exited lightspeed and found themselves approaching a desert planet.
What is this place?
Blendeal, the most inhospitable ball of dust this side of the galaxy. And it's where I lived for over a year.
You lived here?
Not by choice. But it was safe. I'm hoping it still is. Stay close to me, okay?
Okay.
The nebulous flew through Blendeal's atmosphere, and when the clouds had cleared, Caseus laid eyes upon the ancient ruins of the Praxium cruiser. This planet is dangerous. You are not to leave my side without permission, and whatever you do, don't go onto the sand.
Why?
There's a lot more dangers in the galaxy besides stormtroopers, Liara. Those sands are infested with large creatures that live under there. And they're hungry. Liara gulped and nodded.
Got it. No sand.
They landed on the exterior of the Praxium ship, and Caseus saw that in the 8 years he'd been gone, a good portion of it had begun to sink further into the sand. Stepping out, Caseus kept Liara close and looked around.
It's hot here.
It's a desert world, Liara. It's hot everywhere. Stepping closer, Caseus saw an extinguished campfire and walked over to it, stooping down to inspect it. It was relatively fresh, most likely a day or two old. Someone had been here recently, and he had a good idea as to who it was.
What is this thing?
The ship was once used by the Jedi thousands of years ago. It crashed here and was lost to time. We're going to stay here a little while, okay?
Can we go inside?
Only if you promise to stay close to me.
Promise.
Caseus smiled and walked over to the large hole in the exterior as they walked inside through the dark corridors. So much of the ancient technology and artifacts had already been looted as they made their way down to the empty hangar, its bay door overlooking the dunes.
This place is huge!
Liara smiled as her voice echoed throughout the hangar. Caseus felt a well of emotions and memories wash over him as he walked through the area. Looking up, he saw the dangling cranes that Dravok made him leap across. A few scorch marks on the ground from their intense lightsaber training, and caught on a jagged piece of metal from an old starfighter wing, a fragment of old black fabric, part of Dravok's tunic. Caseus picked it up and smiled a bit. He didn't know if Dravok ever bothered to change that ratty old outfit.
What's that?
Caseus looked at Liara, who had been collecting small metal trinkets and scrap from the ground. Nothing. Just a piece of cloth. Caseus put the fragment of fabric in his pocket and looked at Liara. Since we have some time, why don't we get to know each other a little better? I don't know if I ever learned your last name.
Cinda.
Liara Cinda. Well, Liara, I'm Caseus Urshan.
That's a funny last name.
Well, so is Cinda. How old are you?
11. I'll be 12 soon, though.
Interesting. You know, I was around your age when my master took me as her pupil.
Master?
Yes, Liara. You see, the Jedi have a tradition. When a young child with the Force comes of age, they're selected by a far more knowledgeable Jedi for training. The bond between a master and their student is sacred, and it's one of the cornerstones of the Jedi.
Are there other Jedi?
Cassie's face went slightly dour. At one time, there were many of us. We lived in a beautiful temple in a faraway world, full of cities and tall buildings. The temple was our home. It was where we trained, ate, slept. It was the only place we knew he truly belonged.
Where are the Jedi now?
I'm sorry to say that most of them are no longer with us. Something terrible happened 10 years ago. Now the Empire hunts down any surviving Jedi.
How did they die?
Cassius closed his eyes and remembered the events of that fateful day. The day he lost everything. She wasn't ready to hear it yet. I'll tell you some other time. In the meantime...
What is it?
Cassius sensed an approaching presence. Follow me. Stay close and don't make a sound. From up above, they heard a ship landing, and Cassius feared who it might be as they slowly crept up to the surface and heard voices. Carefully, Cassius poked his head around the corner to the exterior and saw a few unsavory-looking individuals inspecting their ship.
Someone's here.
Do you think the Empire found us?
I don't know, but whoever's in here isn't getting out of here without their ship.
A Weequay carefully aimed a cycler rifle at the fuselage of their ship as Cassius prepared to confront them.
Hold on, boys. Don't be so hasty. There may be something of value aboard.
Cassius smiled. He recognized the voice and saw a stout Rhodian emerge from his ship, clad in expensive gear. Looking carefully at the ship, he opened the ramp and stepped inside.
Hey, that's ours!
Cassius suddenly snapped out of his thoughts and saw Liara run forward to one of the confused pirates as she kicked him in the shin. Before she could do anything else, one of the other scavengers grabbed her by her collar and lifted her into the air.
Who are you, little rat?
Cassius stepped out and ignited his lightsaber. Drop the girl. Now. The pirate immediately dropped her and aimed his blaster as the Rhodian exited their ship.
What's going on out here?
The Rhodian looked up and saw Cassius, who looked at him and smiled. Hello, Rondo. Rondo stared for a moment before shaking his head and holstering his blaster.
By Rhodia's moons. I just can't get away from you, can I, Urshan?
Doesn't seem like it. Cassius shut off his saber and walked over to Liara and firmly put a hand on her shoulder.
Who's the girl? Your daughter?
No, this is Liara. She's my Padawan.
Padawan?
It's a long story. But first we need to talk.
If this is about another crusade against the Empire, you can forget it. Dealing with you and your Jedi business almost got myself and my men killed last time.
You don't have to worry about that. I just need information and some supplies if you can spare any. Rondo sighed.
Well, you won't leave until you get it, will you?
Rondo, you know me so well.
Don't push it, Cassius.
Cassius looked down at Liara and ushered her forward. Liara, this slime ball here is an old friend.
Slime ball?
Liara carefully walked forward.
I'm Liara. Nice to meet you, Mr.
The name is Rondo. And I wouldn't exactly call us friends so much as old business partners.
Well, whatever you call us. It's good to see you, Rondo. Rondo smiled.
At the very least, I'm glad to see you're not dead, boy. Help me and my men offload our gear, and we can talk after.
Cassius helped Rondo and his men offload their cargo, while Liara waited patiently for them to finish. The suns were now low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the land as Cassius sat with Rondo and his men around a fire with food and drink. So Rondo, what have you been up to since the last time we met?
Keeping a low profile for the most part. We come back here every couple of weeks or so to salvage what we can. This ship is still quite the gold mine. We stayed away from Blendeal for a while in case Rax had told them about this place. Luckily, it seems to have eluded his fat head.
Cassius glared at the name. Had it not been for Rax's cowardice, perhaps they could have pulled off their mission to kill Vader. But it was too late to think about what could have been.
What about you? Last time I saw you, you were occupying prime real estate at rock bottom.
Caseus smirked a bit. After everything that went down, I gave up. I left for Dantooine and found a farmer who gave me a home and work. Then I met Liara. Rondo looked over at Liara, who was being occupied by a magic trick being performed by one of his crew. I found out that she's like me. The force is strong in her. I wasn't going to teach her anything until she got into trouble with some kidnappers. After that, I spoke to her mother and she let me give her some lessons. I messed up somewhere along the line, however. Someone found out I was there and Vader sent an Inquisitor. I dealt with her, but Dantooine wasn't safe anymore. For either of us. Now, I'm teaching Liara what I know. Rondo looked carefully at Caseus.
You tend to have a habit of getting into trouble, Caseus. I say this not out of spite, but out of respect. I don't believe this will end well for you. With the Empire looking for you, it's only a matter of time before you're found out.
That's why I want to talk to you. You've eluded the Empire for years. You managed to hide from Coruscant security, the Empire. Certainly you know places without any prying eyes. Somewhere I can train her in secret. Rondo stroked his chin.
There are a few systems. Hiding won't be as much of a problem as arriving unnoticed.
What are our options?
There's always the common choices for people on the run. Tatooine, for example.
Tatooine is a hive of scumbags and bounty hunters. I wouldn't be able to train her without someone finding out.
Rothana, perhaps?
Rothana takes us too close to Hutt space. The Hutts don't have much love for our kind. We've got enough problems trying to evade the Empire.
Someone's been a picky Padawan. Look, Caseus, your options are few and far between for what you're asking. I know one other planet. It's not too remote, but if you keep your distance from the public, you may be safer there than any other world. Chandrila.
Chandrila? That's a core world. The Empire maintains control out there.
Not all within the Empire are loyal to it, Caseus. There are whispers of rebellion in the Outer Rim. Chandrila may be under Imperial control, but their presence there is quite limited. I've been traveling quite a bit in the past 8 years, and if I'm right, which I often am in these matters, Chandrila is not too fond of the Empire.
I don't know. It just seems like such a massive risk.
Maybe so. But what better place to hide from your enemy than right under their nose?
Caseus thought it over. Rondo had never lied to him before. He trusted him. But this was still a risk he wasn't sure he could take. Especially with Liara in his care. I'll think about it. I'm gonna get some sleep. I'll have an answer in the morning. Caseus got up and saw Liara dozing off against a crate of spare parts and picked her up, bringing her into the ship. There was only one bed inside the nebulous, so he decided to let her sleep there while he dozed in the cockpit. As Caseus slept, he was awoken by what sounded like crying. Getting up, he went to Liara and found her crying into her knees. Liara? Are you okay?
No. I miss my mom.
Caseus looked at her with pity and sat beside her, putting his hand on her back. I know, Liara. It's never easy leaving home. But I'm here with you. And I won't let anything happen to you. Liara sniffled and rested her head on Caseus' arm, holding on to him.
Caseus, do you miss your mom?
Caseus looked down at her and back up, facing out the viewport. Sometimes. I never really knew her. My master was the closest thing I had to a mother. I miss her every day.
What was she like?
Caseus smiled softly and thought of Master Takai. She was wise. One of the smartest people I ever knew. She was strict. She didn't tolerate any nonsense during training. But more than anything, she was kind. So kind. Whenever I was upset or sad, she was always there to tell me things would get better. They always did. Caseus looked down and was surprised to see that Liara had fallen asleep in his arms. Carefully, he set her back in the bed and covered her with the blanket before heading back to the cockpit to sleep.